Welcome everybody to Nostalgia Test. This is the podcast where me and my friend Will
What's up, everybody?
talk about media from our childhood and how it holds up in the modern day. This week we're going to do Parachutes by Coldplay. But first, let's jump into media we've been enjoying recently. And I've been so excited to talk to you about this because you recently finished one of my favorite shows ever, Adventure Time. And I want to how was it overall, and how was the last season and finale?
That's very interesting because there's so much content there, across all of it. I would say overall I enjoyed it, and I'm happy with how it ended. I got into Adventure Time around the time when it started.
You got me into it pretty much,
because I was super into like internet culture and stuff, and it was always brought up a lot in different things. And then like getting into music, you'd always see like Adventure Time references at festivals and things like that.
Yeah.
So I watched like through like the first like 5 seasons, and then I just like got busy with college and stuff and kind of fell off of it. So of course you recommended it a lot to me, so I finished it, and I would say overall I enjoyed it. I think that there were some certain flaws around the middle there. Last 2 seasons were like very good, tremendously good. Around season 6 was just like a slog.
Yeah.
And season 7, I was still at some points I was like, why are we still like doing filler? Like we're in the meat and potatoes now. But towards the end, I really liked how it wrapped up everything, and like you were still bringing back references from like season 3 and stuff towards the end. There's a lot of comparisons to like Steven Universe, because they had a lot of similar people work on it, and they're both Cartoon Network shows, and they deal with somewhat adjacent issues. Mm-hmm. I think like in comparing them, Steven Universe is better narratively, but I think where Adventure Time succeeds in its like delivery and its artistic value and stuff like that, because just like the quality of the characters that they built up and the animation, and it was pretty awesome in the end.
Yeah. I just watched their spin-off as well, which
I haven't seen that yet.
Was so awesome. I didn't like love it. Like I probably had too high of expectations, to be honest, but I really enjoyed it. The writing was super good. It was super well thought out, and it fits in really nicely. It's on HBO, which kind of sucks. I had to do like a 7-day trial or whatever, but still pretty good.
Yeah. Well, that just shows like that they can put it on there because it has such a dedicated fan base that people will subscribe for that.
Yeah, it's like
get a 7-day free trial.
Yeah, no, I guess it is a compliment to like the capitalist society we live in with all these streaming platforms of like, oh, Disney's getting Hamilton and HBO's getting Adventure Time and stuff like that. And HBO had also like South Park, and they took a lot from Hulu, which kind of sucks, but.
Yeah. I'm sure that HBO was willing to put up a lot of money to try and get those favorite shows.
Yeah. But what else have you been enjoying recently?
Haven't listened to much new music this week actually, but I have watched a bit of TV. So I've been continuing through Community, which a friend recommended to me, and that I didn't think I would be enjoying as much as I am, because there's just so many sitcoms out there, and sitcoms usually like they're all the same, but this one, the acting and the characters are really good. Donald Glover, aka Childish Gambino, is in it, and he does a phenomenal job, as well as all the other actors. There's definitely a lot of like sitcom tropes and pitfalls in it, as like it's just the nature of the medium, I guess. But the writing on them is really good. I knew that Dan Harmon made the show, so Dan Harmon, famous for his D&D show and then Rick and Morty. But then I also didn't realize that the Russo brothers worked on it a lot too, who did a lot of the Avengers movies, which is interesting.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah. But like a lot of good jokes and a lot of good relationships between the characters. Like you're not pining for that one relationship between the guy and the girl the entire time, because all the relationships are changing up so much between
cool.
all the characters.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's good. And then Matt got me into Letterkenny, which so I definitely have like a line in shows like I think people can express themselves creatively however they want, but there definitely becomes a point when a show is like too vulgar for me to enjoy it.
Same.
And this is like that's like the problem I have with a lot of South Park episodes. There's some South Park episodes that I really enjoy, and I wish I could get into more of it, because there's some really good writing in South Park, but also like very crass. And Letterkenny definitely crosses the line several times, but also it's just so unique in that most of the humor is just based on their conversations and the way that they talk to each other. And it's just funny to hear them like fire back in their Canadian accents at each other, and that it doesn't have any big actors in it. That's interesting too, that like literally it's just like this is a lot of their like first gig is just this show.
There's a lot of those.
So it's cool. They're just kind of ordinary people. Yeah, that's what I've been doing.
I checked out Phoebe Bridgers on your recommendation, and I really enjoyed it.
Nice.
I was in a very emotional state, and it like was absolutely...
Oh, dude, that's a bad
No,
time
but
to
it was
listen.
like good. It was like a good release, and it reminded me a bit of like the Adventure Time, like Lake, the band that does like the credit theme and all that.
Yeah, it reminds me of them. And also she reminds me a bit of the girl who plays Marceline, because I know that she has some of her own,
Olivia Olsen has like an album and
music.
a few other songs that are like official too.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what, like, if I relate to something I love so much from childhood, that makes me jump into a new artist very easily. But
yeah.
Also that Madeon single
That's
today
awesome.
with Earth Gang was really fire.
I didn't get to listen to it yet, but I need to, because I'm like, whoa, like, you know, typically when a producer puts out a remix, it's usually by another producer, so it's cool that a hip-hop group did it.
Yeah, it was really good. And they had that song with Lewis the Child last week, so I was like perfectly introduced and ready for this one.
Yeah, I'll have to give that a listen.
All right.
Oh, you got a happy hour
I got
right now?
another Yards. This is a pale ale. I guess I always ask you to like help me with my understanding, but if you could explain it, this is probably an easy one to explain.
The pale ale? Yeah, so, so typically when we buy a beer that's listed as a pale ale, it means an American pale ale, which means it's in the ale style. So, like, a beer is either a lager or an ale. It falls under one of those two umbrellas, so it's falling under the ale style. And typically pale ales are a little bit hoppier, but not as hoppy as an IPA. Usually, lately, they've been, like, pretty juicy. Typically, when it's just listed as pale ale, it means American pale ale, so it's like an American style lighter ale. Yeah. And
I got this fancy glass from my aunt for my birthday. That was a nice gift.
Yeah, it's a nice snifter right there. So different glasses are meant for different types of beers, but I kind of like to put any beer in a snifter, because the goal of the shape of like a snifter or a tulip glass is that all of the so if the glass just had a straight top like mine actually does, then all of the aroma just kind of like escapes everywhere. But when it can curve in like that, the aroma is going like straight at your nose, and so much of our taste is smell. So that's the goal of it.
Okay. What have you got?
If you smell more, you taste more. Yeah. So I've got this was a beer that I had heard about like before I started like regularly drinking beer, but I really got to try it when I went to Europe for my study abroad. And this is a Francis Connor Weiss beer. So this is a wheat beer that's made in Germany originally by some monks. And it's probably like my favorite wheat beer in the world. And it's not impossible to find in America, but it's a little bit harder. Looks a bit like that. It's very, very cloudy because it's unfiltered. And yeah, it's just, you just smell the nose. It actually has like kind of a banana taste. It's just got like a banana and like fruity ester taste and a lot of wheat. It's almost like drinking banana bread. It's like crazy. Once
I went to a farm and it was just like this local guy, and I saw some like jug of liquid in the back, and I was like, "What's that?" And he was like, "Oh, let me like let you guys all try some." And he poured us some, and it was this like fermented banana juice, kind of alcoholic, I guess, but like that. But it was so good.
Yeah, that's almost like a kombucha, I guess.
A little bit, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to try that. I love I know bananas are not like the healthiest fruit for you, other than a good source of potassium. But I love using bananas as like a base for smoothies because of how creamy they can make it. So I'll throw bananas in the freezer and then like cut them up and throw them in. So it's also a good base if you're ever making any ice cream.
Yeah, my grandma made some homemade ice cream, and I did have some. I've been going sugar-free kind of life, but I was like, this is 1 week I can have some ice cream.
When I worked at the ice cream shop, we didn't add any sweeteners to our ice cream. That doesn't mean it had zero sugar in it, but all of that sugar came from what we added into it. So like bananas, strawberries, chocolate,
right.
whatever. That's where it came from. So I bet, you're all into healthy eating and stuff. I bet you could try to make your own
Right,
ice
cream
cream
and
that was low to no sugar.
yeah, I mean Halo Top and Ben and Jerry's have their own, really low calorie.
Yeah. Yeah, I like Halo Top. People complain about Halo Top a lot, but I really like it.
People just get, it's kind of like, I don't know if it's like a dopamine issue, but people just get used to the level of sweetness. And after like months, things that used to be like normal become like too sweet, which I kind of enjoy.
Yeah. All right, so the album we're talking about this week is Parachutes.
I honestly don't know the point of the name of the album, and I was trying to like figure that out. I did.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun researching this because it's one of my favorite Coldplay albums, and Coldplay is probably my second favorite band behind Muse. Both British rock bands, and both like some of the biggest touring and otherwise bands and names in music.
Yeah.
I guess Coldplay, both of them have kind of fallen, I guess, in terms of popular notoriety, but I feel like both of them obviously are some of the biggest still. And they both go back, like this album's about to turn 20, and it was their first album. But yeah, I'm talking a lot, so if you have anything.
Oh no, keep going. You definitely know more about them and their history and stuff. But yeah, you're right. I mean, the fact that they've both been able to stay relevant and tour for so long. They were also some of the first bands you really got me into. I mean, when I was younger, I had like what my dad introduced me to. So I had like Phil Collins and Genesis, and then the Steve Miller Band. And those I liked because it was like what my dad exposed me to. But like when you recommended like both of those bands to me, that's like what really got me into music and such.
Yeah, me too, actually. Like Coldplay, I got into them a little bit late. I'll tell the story because it's actually really, really weird. I was super into Guitar Hero, so I got Guitar Hero 3 for the first one. My first Guitar Hero game. And then I got like World Tour and 5. And I remember In My Place was in Guitar Hero World Tour, I think. And I think another one of their songs was in like 4 or whatever. They had a lot of songs in Guitar Hero. And Guitar Hero was what got me out of like Disney Channel music. And like I was also into like Owl City. And that got me into like rock music, and it got me into playing the guitar. And that honestly just changed my life in so many ways. Because I got a guitar and all that. And then I actually got Guitar Hero on the DS, which was really fun because you had to
I had that too.
Yeah, you had to hold it really weird and use the touchscreen and like press the buttons. It had this whole attachment.
Oh my gosh, it plugged into the Game Boy Advance slot. And it came with a stylus that looked like a pick.
Oh yeah. Oh, I definitely traded those into GameStop and got like $1 for it. I was like, what?
Oh my. Yo, that's probably like, there's going to come a time when people will be so nostalgic for that edition of Guitar Hero that'll be worth a lot.
I already wish I could like show it off right now. But then I got the Guitar Hero mobile app because like, I don't know, I had an iPod Touch at the time and I was so into like apps. Like I remember when Angry Birds came out. I remember like when it first charted, I bought it. Anyway, the Guitar Hero app it was just like the same game pretty much with your fingers. And I remember Yellow was on it, and that song did it for me. I went and purchased it, and I even showed it to my mom, which is kind of weird. But she got into it so much and showed my dad. And then my dad ended up like buying a lot of their albums, and pretty much he still does this. Like when I've gone home over break and stuff, he'll just play their albums on constantly or just shuffle their whole discography when he's like working outside. And it almost like makes me like them less just because I hear it so often. But anyway, in 2012, I went to my first concert with my parents, the Milo Silodo tour. The poster is like right up there. I can see it, but it's just like right out of frame. Oh.
I'm surprised your dad didn't discover them before because of how much your dad likes U2.
Yeah. Same with Muse. I mean, he saw Muse open for U2, but he never got into Muse. And with Coldplay, it's like, I think Viva La Vida had just come out when I got into Yellow, so that was like the first 2 songs I really remember. And In My Place. Those are like my first 3 that I got into, but...
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what was... I mean, the first Coldplay song I ever heard was Yellow, because it was so insanely popular. I'm trying to think of which was the first album I listened to all the way through. I think it was either A Rush of Blood or X and Y were the first ones that I actually like heard the whole thing.
Those are
too.
so good too. Mm.
Yeah, but this album is their very first album ever. They did put out 2 EPs before this one came out, so I guess that's how they kind of got their start and started becoming popular. Their second EP was when they got signed to a record label, and this was their first big commercial album.
Yeah, they started in college in the University of London College or University
Wow.
College of London or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They were all in the music program. Chris, Johnny, Will, and Guy. And basically, it's hilarious because Will knew the drummer, and the drummer was gonna like try out, but then the drummer didn't show up, so Will just like tried the drums, and he like naturally became the drummer just because of that, which
That's
is
too
kind
funny.
of
Wow.
insane. And they did their first gig as Starfish, which is hilarious. Their first 2 shows, and then this band they knew didn't like they were called Coldplay and they didn't want the name anymore. They thought it was shit. So they were just like, you guys can take it if you want. And they were like, sure. And they were worried about how people would pronounce it. Like that was why they gave it up. And I don't know why, because Coldplay is like
That's pretty
a fine
straightforward.
word.
Yeah.
And it's a miracle like every album happened early on. Like you could even look at the recent albums and say the same thing. And the documentary where I learned a lot of this is on Amazon Prime Video for free. And it's called Head Full of Dreams. So the only thing I don't like about it is it kind of like keeps everything kind of ties back into Head Full of Dreams because that's like
Yeah.
it's kind of like their onomatopoeia or their, is that the right word? Like their prime art piece, that represents them.
Yeah, like that's not an onomatopoeia, but yes.
Mean words.
I'm trying to think. I have in mind the word that you're thinking of.
But
I can't remember.
But yeah, so I think though comparing those albums is kind of insane, and we're not going to do that. But I just love Parachutes. It has such a special place in my heart because of like how unique and acoustic and like intimate and down to earth it is. And they even said like, I saw a recent interview from like a few months in January. They asked about the 20th anniversary of Parachutes, and they said it like they wouldn't do a tour because it just is so intimate and so small that it like wouldn't work with what they're doing nowadays. And they said that about their new album. Sorry, they actually said that about their newest album, Everyday Life, which is funny to compare that one and Parachutes because they have a lot more similarities than their other newer work. But
Yeah, and that's funny that they said that they wouldn't tour it, but also I think kind of cool because I was about to say if there wasn't a pandemic, this would be the perfect time to do like a Parachutes redo tour.
yeah, sorry, that was actually talking about Everyday Life. For Parachutes, they
Gotcha.
just said like it's like a marriage anniversary. They're just gonna take it out to dinner and give it some wine and chocolate.
Oh man. Oh, but how cool like would that be? Like I know Muse somewhat recently, I think a year or 2 years ago, they did a smaller show. So how cool would it be if like Coldplay went back and did like a bunch of secret shows at smaller venues and played this album?
Well, the best part, and you haven't seen Coldplay, right? You've just seen Muse.
No, and they're like a bucket list artist for me. At least like if they were playing like from their first 5 albums, like definitely that's a show I can't miss.
Yeah, and like I've seen them twice. I saw them on their Head Full of Dreams tour as well.
Yeah.
And I think they're one of the only artists that I would personally go to in a stadium. Like I've been to quite a few stadium shows and most of them have been not worth it as far as the acoustics, the crowd experience, and the money. Those are my 3 things with those. But I think with Coldplay and I mean Muse I don't think works as well, but still they're like right up there. Those are like the only ones I would see in that big of an arena. But when I saw them both times, I thought the set was over. It was probably like an hour and a half or 2 hours in. And then like after a while, you think it's done. The lights are still black though, so you know it's still going on. And then like Chris pops his head out of like some obscure, not like like right around people. And then everybody just kind of like goes away and they're the spotlight and it's just stripped down. And they do a lot of these Parachutes and older acoustic like songs that the fans love, but they're not like their big stadium hits. So
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, that would be a reason to go. I would love to hear a lot of those. So this album, it's got 10/11 tracks because Coldplay like to do the hidden track thing.
yeah,
How do you feel about some of the songs on it?
I love it. And just to shout out, the first song, Don't Panic, and High Speed actually were recorded in the 90s and appeared on their Blue Room EP and other singles. And it's interesting. I don't know if you've heard the Don't Panic song from the Blue Room EP, but it's so different. Like the production is drastically different.
So as much as I listened to them over and over again in like middle school, high school, I have actually not listened to. Actually, I think I've listened to one song off of Blue Rune, but I haven't like sat and listened to those EPs.
No, same. Yeah, my dad has, but I like for some reason I wasn't interested when he played them. But I've definitely heard them.
Yeah, yeah. So the song is on there, but it's a different version.
It sounds way more like electronic and wispy and like ethereal and apocalyptic, which the song kind of is. But
yeah, it is. I noticed that.
But yeah, my favorite part about this album is just that it's an album that you kind of can live with. I feel like it kind of grows up and matures with you, and it's something that you can honestly play in almost any situation, like a late night drive, a trip to the store, chilling in your apartment. I mean, I wouldn't just put it on at a party, for instance. Like it's very acoustic and mellow, but like the lyrics kind of change, and you can interpret it in so many different ways. And I don't know, I really appreciate a lot of the songs, because before when I would listen to it, I'd probably play it all the way through, and I didn't really distinguish the songs that well. Like I know Yellow, obviously, but I didn't really know exactly each song and what it was called and like the meaning and the lyrics. So I really, really enjoyed going into it for this to prepare.
Yeah, yeah. To many people, this is like the peak Coldplay performance, even though it's their first album. But maybe because it's special and nostalgic for a lot of people. But for a lot of people, consider this like their best. I don't like. I have like a couple others in mind, but it's for me still, it's a phenomenal album.
Yeah. And I'm guessing you just like listened to it like I did, just like as you got into them, you just kind of started listening to it.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously, like Yellow was the first one, but I was like more picking apart like their big songs, and then I delved into their albums and went from there.
Yeah, this is probably one of the first bands or first artists that I would listen to in albums, because I was so broke, and this was in like 2009. So the fact that my parents bought it means that I had it. Like before, I had to like, do I want to buy a few singles or buy the whole album? And usually there were a few songs I didn't want. So in iTunes translation back in the day, that meant I didn't buy a lot of albums. So the fact that my dad would be able to give it to me, that meant the world. And that honestly is why I'm so into them and into their albums and know their, B-sides and stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. And they like have a B-side on this album too. One thing I was looking up, I was wondering how it was received, because like I've known it to be like for most people to consider it one of their favorites. And that's true. It was like very critically acclaimed when it came out. Apparently, this album I read stole a lot of Radiohead fans.
Wow.
Because around the time that this one came out, Radiohead put out Kid A, which is their most electronic and experimental album. So apparently people who wanted like the old Radiohead sound came to Coldplay because they just put out Parachutes and another British band, and it sounded more like older Radiohead. So apparently that's how they got a lot of fans. And Pitchfork gave it Pitchfork reviewed it, and Pitchfork's been known for having some controversial reviews, but they gave it a 5 out of 10.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, like again, like I said, Pitchfork has given some controversial reviews. They gave Childish Gambino a 1 out of 10 at one point. They gave Bass Nectar a 2 out of 10. So it's like they're known for throwing some ones out there, and I'm sure this one could be considered as well, because I think even if you're not huge on Coldplay, it's pretty hard to consider this one like a strictly like mediocre album.
Oh yeah, and I just think overall the execution is so there. I mean, it's short and sweet. All the song, like it tells a really nice story. And I think the best part, like I said, is just that you can interpret it in so many ways. Yeah,
definitely. So let's run down the tracks. We got the opener, Don't Panic, which, as you said, was on a previous EP. It's not very long. It's only like 2 minutes long, but I think it's a really good opener.
Yeah, I really love just like the beautiful world part of the chorus, and it's kind of what I need to hear right now, just like to stop and like smell the roses and just remember the good stuff, because that's kind of what the song is about. I mean, it's kind of inspired by like sci-fi and apocalyptic, and only after the world dies do you appreciate how beautiful it is. And I feel like you can go through life like that. Like you can get caught up in all these stupid things, but miss like the small things that can bring joy.
Yeah, this one's interesting to me because on their later albums, they tend to make the opener like very swelling and cinematic. And this one, to me, like it doesn't feel like it's as cinematic, but it feels like it's the opening to a concert almost, the way it kicks off.
Yeah, it almost gives me some like Beatles vibes. I don't know if
Yeah,
I don't like the Beatles that much, but
yeah. I feel that though. I get that comparison.
I really especially love when Johnny comes in on the second verse and adds like the backing vocals, and yeah, it's just I don't know. Their synergy and chemistry is just so good with the whole album. But
Yeah, definitely. And after that is one of my favorites on the album, Shiver.
mm-hmm, this one is awesome.
Yeah, it's a little bit longer. I really like the guitars on this one. They're so like crunchy and lo-fi and so textured, which is very different from a lot of the music they made later on. But like you've said before, this album is a very intimate feel, and I think that adds to the closeness that you feel in this.
Yeah, definitely. This one is definitely one of my favorites, and I love just how like relatable it is. Like it's very much and like kind of immature adolescent love. Um, but I still like really like it, and partly like I listened to this when I was so young, and I think it's they wrote it in college, and I think it is more relatable since they weren't these huge pop stars at this point. They were making more intimate and like personal music. I like
Yeah, I
poetry.
really like the chorus on this one as well.
Yeah, and how the last chorus like adds the new lyrics that isn't just like Shiver. It's just like it's like another poem, and I love how like dynamic the song is. Like it's just really really unique for the song structure.
Yeah, definitely. After that, we have to talk about Spies. Tell me how you
Hmm.
feel about Spies.
I used to not like it for sure, but I've recently like really come around to it, and
Mm-hmm.
like the interpretation I read on Genius, people were talking about like the mental health aspect and how like you have all these worries and negative thoughts and issues in your head, and it's just like spies that you're scared of them, but like they won't do anything to you. They're just hanging out somewhere. And I really loved that, gave me like a new way to see it, and I really love all the music in it too.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it before. Maybe I need to re-listen to it and think about it in that way because this is one of my less favorite ones. I guess kind of like how you
Hmm.
felt about it a long time ago. It's kind of like one of my less favorite ones, but I do appreciate how somber it is. Same with the
Hmm.
next one, Sparks.
This one is awesome. This is definitely one of my favorites, and like I especially love just how satisfying it is. Like they don't say sparks until like the very end, and it every time you kind of want the chorus to go into it, but then it finally does, and it's just this really good feeling.
Yeah, Chris is singing in a really low timbre on this one.
Hmm.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, I love his like range and performance on this album. Like I need to listen to their other albums now, but I feel like Chris especially just gives so much emotion and like variety in his voice. And it's partly why I like Kendrick Lamar cuz he gives like so much emotion, and his voice is distinct, but it sounds so different in so many different songs and even throughout the songs. And I feel like Chris Martin does the same thing with all these.
Yeah, yeah. Chris definitely has like a lot of vocal talent there and a lot of writing talent, which you can hear a lot on this album.
Yeah, he said it's basically like his poetry. And it's not
Wow.
just him, obviously. Like, I think I don't know if it's this song or I know a lot of the album they said is inspired by Will's mom actually dying around this time. Like, she died in the spring, and
Wow.
this came out in July. And I mean
Very
that
fresh. Wow.
really beat him up. I mean, she was into music too and got him into music, and so a lot of the lyrics. I mean, a lot of the sadness I think comes from that partly.
Yeah, that's actually something I learned that leading up to Parachute, they went through a lot of turmoil as a band, and that's when
Hmm.
they decided that like Chris is obviously the lead, and Chris is obviously like the most notable thing about Coldplay, but going into Parachutes, they decided that everything was going to be like level and democratic for the
Hmm.
band from now on, and it was going to be equal from all of them.
Yeah, well, we'll get into this later, but yeah, like the same guy Will, the drummer, he actually like dropped out for like a few weeks there. I guess they kicked him out. But they had a lot of stress in the studio, and I think after that they kind of realized that they need to like turn around and change how they do things.
Yeah, yeah. Ooh, since I bring up the rating here before we go into the next song, the biggest song.
Hmm.
Uh, so I looked up some of Chris Martin's writing credits too, and I learned that he's written songs for Keith Urban, Tim McGraw, Kanye West, Avicii, and Dua Lipa. So
Wow.
that's like quite the spread there. He's got
Yeah.
a couple country artists. He's got some pop music, and he helped out Kanye at one point. Like,
Yeah. That is crazy. Yeah.
but the next song is one that probably everybody listening to this knows. It's Yellow.
Yeah. Yeah, this got me
How do
into
you
the
feel about this
band,
one?
and like I think it's like timeless. It's one of those songs. I almost like don't know how they made it in like, 1999 or 2000. Like it's just so good on so many levels.
Hmm. Yeah, I normally hate when a song gets overplayed a lot, but this one's
Hmm.
kind of like the ideal pop song to me. Like, usually I get burnt out on this one, but this, as long
Yeah.
as I don't hear it like back to back, it just like brings up a lot of good memories every single time I hear it and doesn't go stale.
Oh, for sure. And it's like so unique too. I mean, just the wailing guitar and like the lyrics, I love just like your skin and bones turn into something beautiful. Like that is so beautiful and poetic, and like it's a meta song about writing a love song partly. And I just
Hmm.
love that like the way I see it is like, he's talking about a girl, but it's like not just about her looks. It's like her skin and bones, like her most bare elements, but bring out so much beauty and like the culmination.
Hmm. After this, we have Trouble, which is another song I really love.
Hmm. This one is so awesome, and this one was partly, I guess you could say, it might be about like Will and the falling out because Chris was kind of the reason that happened, and they got into like a huge fight. He didn't talk about it much in the documentary, but it makes sense with like
Hmm.
regretting what he said, regretting what he did, wishing him no harm, and like I adore. This is one as a kid I also didn't love because like. So with the Spies song, I didn't understand the Spies metaphor, and it was like so prevalent in the lyrics. Same with this one with
Hmm.
spiderwebs. I never really understood that, but like this is one that speaks to me like probably second to the not the next song, but this is one of my favorites for sure, just personally.
Hmm. Yeah, I like this one a lot. I really love the piano in this one.
Hmm.
Then we got a little interlude that's
Yeah,
called the album title.
yeah, this one is beautiful too, and I also love. There's two lines that get repeated in two different songs. One of them is in this one, and I think the same line is in either earlier on or later on. But it's like, oh, it's in Shiver. The I'll wait in line for you, and it's just kind
Hmm.
of it really is. It's very adolescent, and like again, I relate to this on so many levels. It's a lot of it is about love, and again, it's like that kind of more immature, but like it's still really well written. Like I think it still holds up really well for adults too. But just the whole like
Hmm.
aspect of waiting for somebody and like doing anything for them. And then the other part is living life in a bubble. And I think that's in Everything's Not Lost and I think Trouble. Yeah, living life in a bubble. And that really speaks to me too. So,
Hmm. Yeah, and then that leads right into High Speed. Good transition there.
yeah, this is probably my least favorite. I don't know if you feel similarly because we were a little different on Spies, but.
Yeah, this one it's like this one's like middle for me. Like I wouldn't throw it in one of my favorites. I don't think it's the worst on the album, but it's lower for me. But I do think it reminds me of like the band Porcupine Tree a lot. So it's got some. So it makes me think of all that other music, but it's just not my favorite Coldplay interpretation of it.
I think I might have said this before on about a different song, but it really reminds me of Spyro music, like the music aspect of it.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. Yeah. And after that is We Never Change.
This is my favorite one. I don't know if
I was about to say I think
yeah.
you really enjoy this one.
Yeah, this one like I played it during a really sad walk home in college to my dorm. I forget what happened, but it came on. I put it on my playlist for like chill nights or sad nights, one or the other. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't like
Good
just go to
choice.
the song and listen to it. So it randomly popped on. And like just listening to like the line, "So I want to live life in a wooden house where making friends would be easy." And then those two things alone just like got me to cry. And I don't cry to that many songs, just like through the lyrics. And it's probably more the story than
Mm-hmm.
like the song itself. And then
Mm-hmm.
I also love in the second verse after that it says, "Oh, and I don't have a soul to save. I sin every single day." Like this album is literally poem, like poetry put to word, put to song. And I don't know, this song just
Mm-hmm.
hits me on so many levels. It's so good.
Yeah. And how amazing that it came out so long ago,
Hmm.
and then you heard it like first heard it somewhere in the middle, and then were able to listen to it even in college after that.
That's what I mean. It really like that's why to me this album has like grown with me almost more than any other album because like like Owl City was one of my first albums I got into, like Ocean Eyes, but like I don't listen to that in college and like nowadays. Like I still like it, but like this album I think is just something special for sure.
And then we have the closer, Everything's Not Lost.
Yeah, and this one I don't adore. Like it reminds me more of like older, in the 70s kind of style rock, I guess, or maybe this is a little bit. I don't know exactly the era, but I do like it. It's just not one of my top ones.
Yeah. Normally, I'm all about Coldplay's closing tracks. I normally think they knock it out of the park. This one, I think, is a little bit weaker. Like it's hard to compare. Like Death and All of His Friends, I think it's just like, it's an incredible closer. I think that they were like trying to find their stride on this one, so I give it a pass. It's not a terrible song, but I think it's just weaker in the lineage of Coldplay closers.
Yeah, I definitely prefer Life Is for Living. That one is insanely good.
Yeah. So Coldplay used to always do the hidden track thing where they would have one song that if you have the CD, it's not on the back of the CD, but then you hear it and it's like little treat right there at the end. But if you buy it digitally, you can see the name of it there at the end.
Right.
And this one, in addition, I said I have an affinity for Coldplay closers. I also have an affinity for Coldplay hidden tracks because for whatever reason, I feel like those B-sides are just like really quality.
Yeah.
And this is one of them.
Oh yeah, like this one when it first came on, I was like, "Oh, it sounds so like folky." And then it just evolves and it keeps picking up. The lyrics are so good. Again, it's like a not stanza. It's like like a poetry stanza, right? Or are my words all failing today? And then like the orchestra.
No, that one's right. Yeah.
And then like the orchestra and the whole like ensemble that joins them is to die for, because the rest of the album is again pretty stripped back, pretty just like the four members, but.
Yeah, it's a really nice one right there at the end. So what are like your three favorites off this album, and then how do you feel it holds up? Does it pass the nostalgia test?
Oh yeah, I mean you can probably tell it obviously does for me as I keep listening to it, and I keep getting more and more out of it as I go back to it. And I think if obviously a lot of people know Coldplay, whether it's Paradise or Viva La Vida or Fix You or Scientist or whatever, but I think their B-sides are some of their better songs. Like I think if you look at them for their pop hits, while they're well-written pop songs, even Yellow, like their deep lyrics, like their albums are just so good. And I think I love their messaging too. Like recently they've been going for like the environmental angle. Their last album had a lot of like stuff with refugees and violence and all sorts of like really modern and like topics that hit every human. They're not like an American or a British band. I mean, they are, but I think they just like speak to the world at large on a very personal but also macro kind of level.
Yeah. Some of my favorites are like Shiver and Trouble, and of course Yellow. And I do think this one still holds up today, although kind of like what we covered last week, Fire and Ice, I feel like it does a little bit less, but that's only because, and we'll probably cover these albums at some point in some other episode, I have such strong feelings towards other Coldplay albums too. And that's why I think like we're revisiting things that we love when we grew up. And this album was an album I loved from growing up, but also we'll get into some good stories with like Viva La Vida and X and Y and A Rush of Blood to the Head that you'll see why I feel that way, but still love this album. Still a good project.
Yeah, I think the mastering, like they could remaster it, and I think that would fix the only problems I have with it. I was gonna bring that up. Like I think Yellow doesn't have much bass to it. I think other songs have like too much bass. I think like High Speed really like just sounds off compared to the rest of the songs. It just doesn't fit that well.
Yeah. And this was their first commercial album, so they theoretically should have had the budget for it. But again, they were still a new band at the time, not the best at making everything. I really like the idea of what you said about like a remaster of it, especially they could do that this year. But I'm also okay if they never do, because I think it's just like a cool origin story for them. It really feels like they were like an up and coming band at the time.
You're totally right. Like seeing the documentary, I really lamented that I couldn't be there when they were like playing a like pub. Like holy crap, that's like what I want. I don't want to be, yards away from them in a football field.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Oh man, what a good project.
Mm, so
But
good.
before we close it out today, do we have any questions from our listeners?
Yeah, I got one from Caroline again, and it's cool that she listens and like doesn't know all these things that we talk about, but still listens and follows it. So that was just such a really good feeling. Um, and again, you can
Mm-hmm.
follow us on Twitter and Instagram, linked below, and ask us any questions. But her question is, what is like a gift we, I guess what is one gift we have?
What is one gift we have?
Mine, I interpreted this, and I was thinking of like things I'm good at, and I was like, well, some of those are learned. So I was trying to think about like the genetics, and I think my answer is my creativity. And I'm not always like the most original person, but I try to be. And I think looking at my music history, and I want to do more musical stuff, but I think just my right brain is always active. And whenever I'm approaching, whether it's like computer science with my job, or with school in the past, or with music, or decorating my house, or whatever, I always kind of use that creativity in me, and I feel like that's something that's hard to learn. So I'm gonna go with that.
Yeah, that's a good answer. For me, I would always say it's my desire to help people. And that sounds like kind of like tooting my horn, but it's like not all good. So definitely for like my friends or people I care about, and sometimes even like random people, I always want to try and like go the extra mile to help somebody or make them happy or something like that. And it's also like I said, it's not all good. There are definitely times when I don't like either take care of myself for it, or even in the opposite direction, do it not necessarily for them, but like help them out of like sense of like a wrong sense of obligation, or wanting to like make improve someone's opinion of me, or like make
Mm-hmm.
myself feel good. But I like to think that most of the time it's for it's for a good reason. It's for genuinely wanting to like help people and stuff.
Yeah.
I got a question from I got a couple questions. Let me do somebody who we haven't answered before. Where is it? There we go. All right. This is from my friend Andy. And Andy says, why does the new Cats movie have ties to My Little Pony vis-a-vis the existential crisis that people go through in their 30s? And I think that this question was a lot of random things thrown together, but I think there's also some meat and potatoes here, okay? So he brings up Cats, the musical turn movie, and he brings up My Little Pony, and he brings up existential crises. And I'm not quite sure how Cats fits into there, but I think I can chew on like the My Little Pony and existential crisis thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so I don't know if I've told you this before, but one of my friends has a brother who's in his 20s, and he has a My Little Pony YouTube channel. And I've made it my mission to watch every single one of his videos to completion. And so far, I've done a pretty good job at it. It's not. It's just a bit that I committed to, but now I've committed to it, so now I have to do it.
Do you like interact with him, or are you just kind of lurking? Are you a spy
Only through
waters?
YouTube. I'll submit questions to his YouTube channel and stuff, but that's the only way.
Wow.
But although I like I remember, we talked about Adventure Time, and I said when I was like younger in high school, I was really into internet culture, so I was like I would try out anything that was like viral on the internet. Mm-hmm. So like when the whole brony thing was a trend, I was like, oh, that's awesome. And I was in Hot Topic one day and I bought a brony bracelet and stuff, but I never actually seen the show, the new My Little Pony series. And then I watched and I was like, what the F is this? Like,
Yeah.
like I was like, this is not for me. And then of course my little sisters are into it. But although I like clown it a lot, I do think that there is this desire when you like go through an existential crisis through like your quarter life or midlife crisis, a desire for something like pure and more innocent and just like happy and feel good and stuff like that. So I can respect it for that. Cats, I don't know how to tie in cats here, except for anthropomorphic. Is that the word? Words today. Anthropomorphic creatures. They're both like talking animal creatures.
Maybe the theory is that the more devoted bronies that would dress up as an animal would then get the idea to like, adapt the play into a movie. But I don't think that's backed by anything. Could be true, could be not, probably not.
It could be. I like that theory though.
The only thing
My
I'll
Little
add
Pony?
to your analysis is like, I think a deeper root could just be like a need for community and just people. And I mean, we all have that need. And I think wherever you can find it, people tend to keep going to. So you can kind of see that, not with cats, but with like bronies and anime and video games and Coldplay. Wherever one's accepted, I think, especially with a crisis, can be really helpful and can be a big part of their life. And then they get even more attached. And it's kind of like a cycle.
Oh, I know how we can tie in Cats. And that's, I would say, the 2020 Cats movie gave us all an existential crisis and possibly caused the current pandemic. So that's my connection.
Perfect.
To that. Well, thanks for watching, everybody.
Yeah.
But thanks for watching. This was another episode of a classic album. You can follow us. You can subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe here. If you're listening in your favorite podcast app, follow that podcast. I'm on Twitter and on Instagram as West008.
Yeah, I'm Drew Jordan 97 at both of those.
Yeah. And we keep answering these questions. A lot of these viewers that we're answering from, we actually know personally. But if you're someone we don't know, still throw something in the comments there or shoot it at us on social media because we want to answer as many things as we can. Thanks for hanging out this week, Drew.
Yeah, thanks, Will.
And we'll see you next time.
Have a great week. See ya.